I'm delighted to be joined on the Midweek Alternative Show today by Amélie Swann. She's here to chat about her music and play us some songs. Hello Amélie, how are you?
Hey Chris, doing pretty good. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
You're very welcome. To start us off with, can you tell us where you're based and how your singing career started?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I have lived here since I moved here for college. I'm originally from Allentown, Pennsylvania. I moved to Philadelphia to go to Temple University. I did study under the vocal jazz program there, but my singing career really honestly started when I was like super young. I've always been interested in music. It's pretty much been the one and only passion of mine. Got my first guitar when I was 6 years old. Started writing songs when I was about 11. Knew from a young age that this is what I wanted to do. Came to Temple when I was 18. Studied in the jazz program. I did not graduate because I knew in my heart that even though I really wanted to make music, I didn't want to study jazz, I didn't want to make jazz, and I didn't want to make classical either, which are the only two programs which Temple had. So when I was 19, I was like, you know what, this is not for me. I don't want to have all the student debt for a genre of music I respect, but don't necessarily want to make. So I dropped out when I was 19, and I joined a rock band when I was 19, started working in the restaurant industry to support myself, found two other musicians to play with. We started another rock band, which was a little bit more successful. We played together for another 2.5 years. Then COVID happened, people go different ways. That totally, is a part of life. And I was in quarantine by myself, and I just said, you know what, I'm about 26, 27. Why don't I just try to do this on my own? And then I made my first EP. It did much better than I thought it would. Got noticed by a small label, and now I'm just running with this solo career. So it has been kind of a wild journey, as I'm sure most people have. But yeah, so that's pretty much the timeline of my musical journey.
It sounds amazing.
It sounds amazing. I mean, there was definitely a lot of nights where you're like eating ramen and you're drinking really crappy beer, but I would not have it any other way. I love it.
How would you describe your musical sound and style?
I would say it has changed so much. As of right now, though, in my solo career, I am heavily focused on trip hop. It's, I think, a pretty well-known genre at this point, but I would describe it as down-tempo hip-hop. I think that is what it means to me. I think it shares a lot of qualities with hip-hop and R&B. I think there are a lot of elements of jazz in there because of my schooling in jazz. And I would say that there's a lot of crossover with, sometimes I describe it as dark funk or dark pop, which I don't know if that's really a genre, but I think there's a lot of crossover between like funk and trip hop in there. So that's probably how I would describe it, because I know that that's a genre that I can more successfully pull off on my own.
So what's your songwriting process?
It really depends. I would say 9 times out of 10, I have a lyric that's attached to a melody, and I'll sing it over and over again, put music to it after. It is rare that I'll write the music first before the lyrics, but I have done that too. I have an acoustic guitar, which I will play with a lot when I'm creating a song, not necessarily use it in the songs, especially with trip hop. I don't think acoustic guitar goes super well with that kind of a genre, but because I do know how to play the guitar and I'm pretty knowledgeable in it, definitely helps me craft a song. I will use it to play chords that I like, which would fit with a song, and then I'll take to the piano, which I'm a little bit less knowledgeable with, but can still play the chords. So I kind of use my strengths when I'm first starting to create a song, and then I think, okay, now what instruments are needed to craft this vision that I have. So yeah, I would say 9 times out of 10, lyrics come first. Lyrics for me also always have to be attached with a melody. I have found many times that if I just try to write a poem of some sort, it rarely ever goes beyond a poem into a song because I don't have that original attachment of a melody to it. It's very spontaneous. For instance, when I was writing my latest song, I was literally brushing my teeth, and just the melody and the words just came to me, and I was like, oh, okay, I better stop brushing my teeth right now and jot this down so I don't forget. You know, I had like toothpaste like running down my face. Like, I do not care. It happens very spontaneously. It has happened like that when I'm out in public too, so I'll just go to a corner of a room wherever I am, and I'll just sing into my phone so I don't forget. And of course, you know, people look at you like you are a weirdo. What are you doing? And I'm like, no. Like, I can't forget this because I will hate myself for it. So yeah, I would say it kind of happens pretty spontaneously. If it doesn't happen spontaneously and I do write the music first, it takes quite a long time for me to finish the song, but I have had instances like that too. The third track on my EP that I released in April of 2021, Must Be, was very much like that. I wrote the music first, and it took me almost a whole year to finish it. And I think that that's because I wrote the music first, whereas my latest track I wrote in about 6 hours, and the next day I came to a friend who helped me record it, and you know, it just literally the whole thing took like 24 hours to produce. So you always love when things like that occur, and it's always really nice when it just like feels very organic, but it can take a long time too. So, you know, it's kind of, sometimes it's super simple lyrics, melody, you can see the whole picture, and sometimes it's like, okay, I really need to work on this. So it kind of depends, really, for me.
Do your songs have any consistent lyrical themes?
Yeah, they do. People say, write about what you know, right? And I have, you know, lived an interesting life so far, having different romantic experiences in my 20s. So I feel like a lot of people can relate to, you know, trying to find the right person, and I guess even questioning if that even exists for you. I would say in a couple of my songs like Candy and Must Be, I really question, I guess, if like love really exists, or if it's really just kind of these chemicals which bring us together, which people could say, well, that is what love is. I would say that there's an overall jaded quality to a lot of my songs, a kind of, not resentment for love, but a kind of boredom for the whole thing. You know, one of my lines in like Candy is, it's all for blood and money, that's the feeling, honey, and that's life for you, and that's love for you. I think overall there's kind of a jaded quality of like, is this all it is? Maybe it's not as interesting or exciting as I thought it would be when I was, you know, a child or a teenager. Mm-hmm. And just kind of making sure that I get the message across that, like, not everything is the fantasy that I think people try to push down your throat when you are a kid, especially when you're like a young girl. I feel like, like it's not like roses and pretty and like fantastical. It's just kind of like, okay, we're here, we're doing this. It's just not as interesting as I thought it would be. And, how that kind of like affects me and affects the choices that I make and how I cope with those feelings too. I definitely talk about in 3 a.m. and Enough. I talk a little bit about coping mechanisms, which are not necessarily the best for you, like drinking away your feelings or smoking away your feelings. So I would say that that's probably a reoccurring theme as well. And just trying to figure out what life is about and what you really want as a person, and recognizing that you got to live in reality and not this fantasy world that's kind of depicted to you when you are a kid, because it's not really true. And I want people to note that. And I hear songs on the radio all the time which are so positive and so things will be okay and we're gonna have a great time, and like, that's great, but it's okay to say that things aren't okay and they may never be super perfect. And don't fool yourself into thinking that everybody else's life is perfect either, because with those kind of songs, and I think with social media in general, people really like to pretend that their lives are like perfect and amazing and they're with the perfect person, and I just don't buy it. Like, I just don't. And I want my songs to feel real, and I don't want to lie to people. I would say that my songs are very realistic, and that's probably the overwhelming theme.
You've got 3 songs to play for us tonight. What's your first song choice and why have you chosen it?
The first song choice is definitely Must Be for Me. The reason why I chose it first, it is definitely my most popular song as of to date. So I always think when you interview on a program like this, or when you play a live set, the first song you play really matters to the audience and you really want to come out strong. So I just always think it's really important to showcase the song that other people have liked the most first, regardless of your personal feelings about it, because there's a reason why it's the number 1 song. And if you have any chance of pulling people in to hear your music, which is really hard to do. I mean, personally for me too, it's like I go to a lot of shows with new bands and new songs that I have not heard, and it's a challenge, to ask the audience to really listen and to really try to open their minds, I guess, to new material. I would say that that's probably why I chose it first. I also love that track. I would say in terms of time, it took me the longest to write that track. I'm really proud of the way I persevered through it. I had many times when I was writing Must Be, when I was like, this is never going to go anywhere. What am I doing? I feel like I'm wasting my time. And I just kind of like pushed through, and it really became something I'm really proud of. So yeah, Must Be.
Softly, softly, softly next to you.
How did the music video for your latest single, Enough, come about?
That's actually a really great question, and it was a really interesting journey that I did not entirely plan for, but I'm so completely proud of how it all came together. So I wrote the song. And then I got a message from a person who goes by Low Life Sounds on Instagram. And he reached out to me for the purpose of collaborating on a few tracks.
Yeah.
So I came to his house and we realized, like, oh my goodness, like we have some kind of music companionship that works really well for us. And we started writing, I think, about 3 or 4 tracks so far, none of which we've actually finished yet, but a few we've played live actually, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. The tracks are finished, I guess, but we just haven't mixed them or released them yet. And so we collabed on a few tracks, and I told him, I was like, oh yeah, I have a new single coming out. And he was like, okay, this might sound a little crazy, but one thing I really want to get into is making music videos for people, but I haven't really had any experience with it yet. Would you please allow me to use you as my trial for a music video? And of course, like right away, I was like, of course, absolutely, that would be amazing. Knowing that he had never made music videos before, but just knowing that I enjoy working with him musically.
Yeah.
So I know that his taste is the same as my own. And it was kind of like a little bit of a trust thing. And we just filmed the whole video. I think we split it up into 2 different shoot dates. He has a lovely, lovely, lovely fiance who is a fantastic makeup person, and she was super great at just like directing the makeup for it, and just like, you know, like what to wear and what would look really aesthetically pleasing, which I was so glad to have her too, because I am a very like music person. Like pretty much I don't love to get like dressed up. I know it's really important. It's not my favorite thing to do. So it was just really cool to have her too, and like their team really made the whole thing work really well. And so we filmed it in 2 days, and I just kind of let him take over. I think I maybe had a couple hands in deciding a few shots, but for the most part it was all him, and he did an amazing job. And I really hope that for him it creates more opportunities for him to make more content too. So yeah.
Yeah, it's the interpretation of the video to the song that was spot on. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Which recording studio do you currently use?
I don't really use a recording studio per se. When I need to record my voice professionally, I actually just go over to one of my friends' places. He has kind of like a really good like home studio situation.
Yeah.
Usually I just write a rough track to the best of my ability, and then I come in to see my friend and I'm like, hey, it's pretty much all done. I just need to record a clean take, and we'll just record a couple tracks, and then we mix the song, and then we get it mastered. That's pretty much it. It's not very complicated. When I was first writing my first tracks for my first EP, I didn't even have a microphone at that point, so I would just like sing directly into my computer. And like it was not professionally done at all, but I was just fortunate enough to have the right people to mix me properly, so unless I told you, you probably wouldn't know.
Okay, well, on that note, what digital audio workstation do you use?
A lot of people, they ask me this like constantly. I just use GarageBand, which again sometimes gets a few chuckles, and sometimes people are like, "What are you doing?" That's not a good way to approach things. But for me, it works really well because I'm so used to it. When I was, I think in middle school music class, 12, I was introduced to GarageBand, and I think if I've ever fallen in love with anything, it is GarageBand. I love it. I absolutely, I love it. I love it so much because I've taken so many years to really peruse it and to tweak it and to make it something that works for me. So I love it. I've used Logic also in the past and a couple of other programs, but because I'm not super familiar with it, I find that the songs don't really sound like me, or they just aren't that great because I'm confused. So yeah, I use GarageBand. I actually have this great tool, which if there are people who are listening right now and want to or currently use GarageBand, I would highly recommend this chord that I use. Pretty much it is a cord which plugs into your microphone, and on the other end, it plugs directly into either your phone or your iPad. And for me, it's just been amazing. It's a little pricey. I think it was like $90 or something. But for me, it has been a complete game changer. And it's also helped me create more professional tracks, which I can now bring to my friend who helps me mix and, that stuff. So
we've come to your second song choice. So what's your second song choice for us tonight, and why have you chosen it?
My second song choice for tonight is Like Candy, which is the first track on my first EP. And I chose it because I think out of all of the tracks I've made so far, it's the one that's the most far from trip hop. I would say it is the track that is the most fundamentally funk, and I really love that song. Unfortunately, it's probably my least popular one, and that's probably because I market myself as more of a trip hop persona, but I really like the way that Like Candy turned out, and because I am proud of it, I really want to explore more funk music in general. So I want people to know, I think, that I'm not necessarily a one-trick pony, and I can and will explore more of like a funk pop way in the future. I would say I also picked it because I think the lyrics are ones that I'm pretty proud of. I think they speak a lot to sort of the jaded, realistic qualities of my songs. It probably represents it in the best way, I think. I think I said earlier how there's a line in it which goes, it's all for blood and money. That's the reason, honey, and that's life. You know what I mean? Just kind of like putting it all out there. So, yeah.
been your favourite live performance experience?
I would say, honestly, very, very truthful. My last performance, I think, was actually my favorite one. And the reason for it was I had an opportunity a couple months ago to be the featured performer at a open mic night, and the performance went amazingly. It could not have gone better. It was as perfect as I can possibly do for myself, and I really enjoyed that experience because I personally get very nervous before I perform. Like, I can't sometimes really control it. Like, it's probably something that I need to work on, but for me, performing is always very scary. And I think because I was just the featured performer and it wasn't my show, it really allowed my stress levels to calm down, which just made performing so much better for me. And it kind of made me realize, like, okay, maybe in order to tackle this like nervous problem, what I need to do is to start linking up with other bands and not necessarily be the featured performer, but sort of play before them, or sort of join up and play a show together, so it's not all about me. So while the experience was like really cool in that I did a pretty good job, it was also very informative to me of how I need to approach live shows in the future, because I was like, oh, this works for me. And on top of that, it was just a great crowd too. I mean, your crowd definitely is a huge part of, I think, your success. The people who came out for that show were just so cool, so kind, so nice, and were really paying attention, which makes you feel good and which I think propels you to do a really nice job because you want to give them a nice performance. So, yeah.
If you could play any venue in the world, where would you like to play?
Wow, that's a good question. Of course, I'm going to say a venue in Philadelphia because I know my city, but I do and have always really wanted to play at the Mann Center. It's so cool there. It is a partially inside and partially outside concert hall, so the acoustics are amazing. It is just a beautiful place. The Philadelphia Orchestra plays there all the time. I've seen the Dave Matthews Band play there. I've seen the Pixies play there. And it just really attracts this really cool crowd. And the way the whole place sounds, to me personally, I've never really been to a concert hall which has that level of just like perfect acoustics. So yeah, I would say probably in Philadelphia, that's where I would play. But in terms of the world, I'm not entirely sure. I think that that's a great question, and I think I need to think about it a little bit more to be quite truthful. Traveling outside of Philadelphia to just play really like anywhere would be really cool as of right now. So we shall see, I guess.
What's your hope and aspirations for your music?
I always said from a pretty young age, my dream in life, my one dream is to write a theme song for a James Bond film. Like, if I could do that, that would make my whole career. So I would say whenever you think of a James Bond theme song, that's what I'm trying to make. But apart from that, I think my goal is pretty similar to a lot of other musicians, which is just to make a living doing what you love.
Yeah.
And it's so hard. Who knows if I'll ever get there, but that would be the goal for me, is just to keep creating content, to keep exploring different genres while not losing the people that I've already attracted. And yeah, just slowly but surely just trying to make that push to making music my 9-to-5 job instead of working a 9-to-5 job and then coming home and being like, okay, now I need to work on my second job, you know. That would really, I think, be amazing. I mean, I know for a lot of people, they have the same dream, but one thing I've always said to myself is someone has to make it. Why not me? If you try really hard, you know, things could work out for you. And also knowing that the whole process is a marathon, you know what I mean? It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take years and years, and just being realistic with myself, but also very hopeful too.
Okay, what's next for you this year?
What is next for this year? Well, that is a great question. I have been slowly but steadily creating an album. I have about 10 to 12 songs, which are between 75 to 100% completed. And I'm just at the point right now where I'm choosing which ones I think would be good enough to put on an album, which I plan to slowly release over the course of this year and probably into next year. So it has always been a dream of mine to make a full-length album. However, with the way that social media works, that releasing singles is probably a better way to go about. So my plan is to create a whole album and then release each track probably like once a month for about 12. And then say like all of these tracks that I released are in one compilation. So that's definitely one goal that I have. I've been told by a few people that that's not a very smart way to go about it. Nobody cares about albums, but for me personally, I care. And it's really important to me, and you have to do things which are important to you, or you're not going to put any passion into it. I probably will film a couple music videos again with Low Life, choosing a few tracks from that said album to make those videos for. And then on top of that, just really working on my live performances. You know, we talked about how it's very pressure inducing. It can cause me a lot of anxiety, but at some point you have to get over it and play your shows because, you know, people want to see you play. So make a full-length album, work on my live performances, and just kind of in general keep my head above water.
Do you have any interests or hobbies?
Yeah. I do. So I would say that my probably most prominent hobby right now, it's also music related, but it's slightly different. So I really enjoy making parodies of songs, which usually is a surprise to some people when they see my social media presence. You know, it's like a very almost macabre kind of aesthetic going on. But I really, really, really enjoy making parodies of songs, specifically with food. So that might sound a little strange, but I can give you a couple examples. When I released my first EP, I kind of needed a break from all of the seriousness of the subjects that I was writing about. So I had this idea to make a parody of Adele's song Someone Like You with something like Yoo-hoo. So it's just a whole song about chocolate milk, and I posted it on my YouTube page. You can check it out if you want to.
I will.
It's just a really fun thing to do, and I have plans to release a parody song for food with each time that I also release a quote-unquote normal track. So my next project, I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to go through with it or not, but I had an idea to do a parody of If I Was a Rich Man with If I Had Some Chips Man. I think it has some strong points. I have a couple lyrics in mind for it. I think I wanted to do something with like, if I had some chips, man, a chippy, 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 chippy bag of nuts. What's a lunch without a little crunch? Da 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 da. So
Brilliant.
It's very, very, very silly, but it is a very therapeutic tool for me. You know, not all of your songs have to be so serious, and because I tend to write more serious content, it's just nice to have that too. So I would say that that's probably my main passion as of right now. I don't necessarily do a lot of other activities outside of music, but I do explore a lot of different ways of making music too. I do actually write a fair amount of poetry too, so I could say that that's probably in there too. I do have a small passion to write a musical at some point, so maybe that will occur or not super sure about that one yet, but yeah, that's pretty much me.
What's your final song choice for us tonight, and why have you chosen it?
My final song choice for tonight is my newest release, Enough. I wrote it back in, I believe, March, and we released it at the end of March, I think. And I chose it as the last song because, you know, obviously it's my newest track. It has done the most successfully in the shortest amount of time that my other three songs have, and I am just really proud of the music video for it too. I think that lyrically it's probably one of my stronger songs. Musically, there isn't as much going on in the track as some of my previous tracks either. And when I was writing it and when I first released it, I was pretty nervous about it because it was so just like me, you know, like nothing to hide behind. So yeah, I think that's probably why I chose it. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, well, thank you very much for joining me today. Let's keep in touch. All the best.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. I really appreciate you taking the time, and yeah.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure for me too. That was Amélie Swann, and this is her latest release, Enough.
My love is a red wine. Give me just enough and we'll be alright. But give me too much and I'll get real high. Not enough, and I'll step out of line. 'Cause my love is a red wine. Give me just enough and we'll be alright. Give me too much and I'll get real high. Not enough and I'll step out of line. Send me in the back room. I'm crawling on my knees, looking for a lifeline. Only in my dreams. So I've been pushed out. Now so far, just to get high with the one I wanna stick by is enough. And now, don't take my heart. Don't take my heart. Don't take my heart. Don't take my heart. My love is a red wine. Give me just enough and we'll be alright. But give me too much and I'll get real high. And not enough and I'll step out of line. My love is a red wine. Give me just enough and we'll be alright. But give me too much and I'll get real high. And not enough and I'll step out of line.